I've always started with music. I just, even if it's not, 100% pertaining, you just,
Yeah.
or, when Carrie, between the meetings, we just play music and it's just joyful, just so joyful.
I think, Lynn, not to interrupt you, I think we're on YouTube now. Am I right, Lynn?
Yes, just now we're on YouTube. So
Oh,
welcome everybody
perfect.
to Surrender to Joy with Susan and Myrna.
You just,
Yeah.
And
or,
hang on,
when Carrie,
turning the mic over to you, Susan Michelle. This mic is all yours.
Hi, this is Susan Michel. I am here in Western Massachusetts. I am the author of Surrender to Joy From Suicide to Serenity, based on the transformational truth of A Course in Miracles, which we are all here to study, to learn, to embody the knowledge of. And my good friend and soul sister in Boca Raton, Florida, is the author of Private Lessons with Jesus, based on A Course in Miracles. She's also written numerous other books, including Love's Chosen Destiny, which I am in the process of reading. It is really, really great. How are you today, Myrna?
Good. I'm absolutely very good, really. It's beautiful today. It's beautiful. The weather is cool. It's cool down in Florida, and it's really exceptional. So, yeah, feeling good. And now I'm back and up and running again after the heart surgery that I had. The valve replacement. I'm really better every single day, feeling stronger. So I'm really blessed being here with you. True. Blesses
Well,
me.
you look beautiful, and I'm so happy Glorian is here as well. How are you, Glorian?
I'm wonderful, just great, glad to be here. And I've been enjoying our discussions as well. And I did purchase your book, and I'll tell you a funny, quick story. I purchased the book, and the packages came, and the packages were taken. So I got the book again, but what came to me was that that book probably went somewhere to someone who needs it. So it's out there, and thank you, Susan.
Oh, that's a nice story. Thank you. Someone that we don't know is reading my book and learning from that information. Thank you for sharing that.
I was like, well,
And
that if
that,
anything's going to get stolen, it should be that. So,
like when A Course in Miracles books gets lost or stolen, whoever finds it, maybe that was the information that they were supposed to know at the time. Yeah, really cool how the universe works. And then I see Regis is here. So whatever, Regis, whatever you want to share, you're so wise, you're so insightful. Just raise your hand, and I'd love to hear whatever you have on your mind. So I will start with the introduction of my book. I write, my passion is God. God is love and joy and beauty. He is all that is good in the world. Everything else is our own miscreation. When we are filled with joy, we are connected to God. When we are not joyful, we have lost our connection to all that is real. This is my message. It can be clarified with three simple words: surrender to joy. There is nothing to find. All we need to do is surrender. Now, why is there nothing to find there in the world? Because there is no world. A Course in Miracles tells us over and over throughout the text that there is no world. And it's a really hard concept to well, intellectually understand. I can understand it, but to really embrace that, it's very difficult. So we are always creating our external events by our internal truth. Life is the movie, we are the projector. So whatever we're projecting onto the screen is getting played out for us, is getting reflected back to us. Myrna and I were talking for a few minutes before today's talk, and we were talking about Bashar, who Myrna found a 7-minute video by him, and he talks very clearly and specifically about the fact that there is no world. We're creating our circumstances all the time. So if we are focused on the peace, love, joy, and happiness, we're extending God's love. That's what A Course in Miracles is teaching us to do. However, if we are in a fearful state of mind, then that's what's going to be projected back to us, reflected back to us. I think that's the word. That's what's going to be reflected back to us, that fearful state of mind, not because God wants to punish us in any way, but these are opportunities for us to heal. When our fearful state of mind gets reflected back to us, what we can do is we can just kind of own the pain, because by owning the pain, we can release it. We can release it. You know, a friend of mine was talking to me about that yesterday at lunch. She is not so much a Course in Miracles student, but she's very metaphysical. She's does a lot with past lives. She channels higher energies, and yeah, she's open to Course in Miracles. She just doesn't study it as diligently as I do. So what she spoke to me about yesterday was a time over the past week that she got stuck inside an elevator. The elevator just stopped, and she was stuck inside the elevator with her mother and a friend of her mother's. And she really started to panic, you know, and she went through the whole experience until finally the police came and they saved her. And just breathing was so beautiful for her, because she was afraid she was going to run out of oxygen. And then she had a reading by someone who told her she had something that happened in a past life that caused her to be claustrophobic. So in this lifetime, it kind of came up again because she needed to work through the pain points. Now, Course in Miracles does not either condone or does not take sides when it comes to reincarnation. It doesn't. It says it doesn't matter if you believe in reincarnation or not. It doesn't matter. But I do think that there are pain points within our unconscious that need to be owned so we can release them. The darkness needs to come to the light. I was listening to that today on Audible on Course in Miracles. The darkness needs to come to the light in order to be released. Thoughts, anyone?
I like that, because you're right. The Course in Miracles doesn't take sides. The Course in Miracles says, well, actually, in reality, reincarnation would be impossible, because this is only now, and it's only our thoughts that really bring light to how we're living at the moment. And if you think in reincarnation in those terms, well, that would be impossible. But he also goes on to say that if it makes you feel uh, better, if it makes you feel that belief of reincarnation helps, it's certainly not a hindrance. Go ahead, and it's okay too. So it certainly gives us options. But fear, that's what we really seem to need to do, is to control our own fear. You tell me about somebody who got stuck in the elevator. We all know what it's like to have that sudden state of fear, and that's again a lesson that we need to embody, and to learn that well, if there is no fear, we're just creating that fear, then then what is there, something that we need to work on, something we need to recognize. You mentioned Bashar. He explains it so well, really, that there are no thoughts outside of ourselves. There was no thoughts. There's no world outside of our own thoughts. And it's only our thoughts that create exactly what our experiences are going to be. And that's something that we just need to work on. And when that fear comes up, it's so important to recognize that the reality of truth is God, and that all we need to do is ask, and that we will, be answered. And that's why I was telling you today's lesson fits perfectly into that idea. I need to call and you will answer me. That's it. And I just want to read the first two sentences because they really jumped out at me. I really love them. I am not asked to take salvation on the basis of an unsupported faith. Well, God has promised he will hear my call and answer me himself. Let me but learn from my experience that this is true, and faith in him must surely come to me. So what it's saying is that, don't take my word for it. Well, don't just believe in it because I say so. Just recognize the experiences that you're having. And for me, I realize so many wonderful experiences have come from the belief, faith. But what happens, so that surge of fear takes us away from that understanding or that reality. So, and if we forget that, we're really, all we need to do is just call on God, and our fears are really on, they're stabilized, they're over for us. So I really like that. I really enjoy that. Anyway, Gloria, it's you. You have your hand up.
Oh, yeah. Thank you both. Thank you both.
I got to run and answer my door. I'll be right back.
I love everything that you both shared. And yeah, I like what Myrna just said that, knowledge, which is the experience of oneness, is just that, an experience. It's not acquired learning. And then what you were talking about too with reincarnation, in highest truth, reincarnation is impossible because there's only one. But while we're seemingly here, there's we think there's a world. So yeah, it's impossible because there is no world, but all beliefs that lead to progress should be honored, and we can use everything. Like we seemingly think we're having experiences here, whatever is revealed to us from a past life experience also is showing us what we feel, what we think, which is giving us that opportunity to change that. And I'm glad Myrna did send that little short video on Bashar, Susan, because I agree it was really short and profound. That recognition that the kingdom of God is within our consciousness, that there's nothing outside of us. Anything that we seemingly see is a projected image based upon our unresolved guilt. The ideas that we still believe that the fearful ego is telling us. And once we move into that space of recognition that everything that we seemingly see is contained within, we're not in a body. We're the consciousness, the body, the images, all of it is contained within that mind of God. Thank you.
Yeah, very, very well said, Glorian. A lot of what we are seeing in the world that is not love is unresolved guilt. And God or the universe is giving us another chance to heal. Because I know that when I can really embody my innocence, then I feel at peace. And embodying my innocence is about releasing my guilt. And it is a discipline, it is a definite discipline. They say that's what A Course in Miracles is. It's mind training and it's discipline to focus on the love and release anything that is not love. That's why the central teaching of A Course in Miracles revolves around forgiveness, because every time we are forgiving our brother, we're forgiving ourselves. Every time we're forgiving our brother, we're forgiving them for some unhealed pain point that they triggered within us. So I'm a work in progress. My big abandonment issue that got triggered came from my sister. She had stepped out of our relationship. She wouldn't talk to me for a couple of months. Now, within the past week, we have had communication. So I do feel good about that. I mean, I definitely have mixed feelings because, on one hand, I'm really angry that she abandoned our relationship the way she did. But on the other hand, I'm so glad that at least we have some kind of communication right now. It's not voice to voice communication, but we are texting. So that's good. And I know she's going through a very difficult time. And on one hand, I am angry at her for how she's treating me. But on the other hand, I just truly empathize with the challenges that she's facing. And what I see in her, which I'm doing my best to take full responsibility for, is she really doesn't know anything about A Course in Miracles. And in a lot of ways, she feels completely victimized by life circumstances. I almost sent her a text saying, Course in Miracles has taught me that the way out of grief is forgiveness, but then I didn't want to sound preachy, so I didn't send that text message off to her. But as a Course in Miracles student, I guess that's how I feel that, my sister is not the only one who has felt victimized by life. I think in order to see it in her, I must have that quality in me. I know on numerous occasions I felt victimized by life. But whenever I'm seeing myself as a victim, I'm not connected with the truth of who I am. I'm not connected to my true essence because as we just were talking about, we're creating these circumstances in our life for healing purposes. So we are never ever a victim of circumstances because we are creating the circumstances that we're experiencing. And we don't really want to step into that role of victim because it kind of takes away our power. I mean, basically, what we need to do to move through the challenges is to own the pain, realize there's something there for us to learn from, and then give it to the Holy Spirit so he can help us navigate our way through. And I guess I know that it's easier said than done, but whenever I go into that victim mentality, it's just very disempowering. And whenever I can take full responsibility for what I'm experiencing, I feel so much stronger. As I say each week, we don't grow despite life's challenges. We grow because of life's challenges. As if it wasn't for these challenges, we wouldn't develop our resilience and our strength. So I just never want to reflect back to anyone that they are a victim because none of us are victims. Glorian.
Wow, that's just perfect, Susan. And I really liked all that you said. And I'm big on that too. The power of decision is my own, and I have a kingdom I must rule. And that recognition that we can make another choice, we can change our mind, is the empowerment which takes us from victimhood to what's real. And you started out by saying, embody my innocence. And the only way we really embody our innocence is in that holy instant where we surrender the ego mind to the Christ mind so we can move into that place of non-judgment and beingness and recognizing that, that's what's real. And you said something also, yeah, we definitely want to look. We want to look at what everything's showing us, wait, and then not judge it. Once we look, we make the space for Holy Spirit to reinterpret it, and we choose not to judge it. We're in the true forgiveness. And when you were speaking about your sister and that's tremendous progress and what have you. And I know for myself when certain situations like that have, seemingly had healing or what have you, I'm grateful for that reflection of love's presence or healing in whatever way it is. But I also recognize that my salvation is not found in that relationship, that my salvation comes from my one self united with my creator. And if I am in what you said, that embodiment of my innocence, then I have no need. So it doesn't matter whether or not, say, our sister or brother, you know, comes back, doesn't, none of it matters because we know who we are. So that's the only healing. Salvation comes from my one self united with my creator, and I and the Father are one. And once we get into that presence of being, then we're less invested in any of it, any of the dream, any of the projections of the dreams, because we know we can never be abandoned or left alone because we're one in that I am within us. And that's where we live from. That's why I try to live from that space of the Christ and recognize that these external things are there to teach me, show me what I think, give me an opportunity to bless. That's what I wanted to say. Everything becomes this opportunity to bless. And once we move into that space of blessing, we're not judging. When we're not judging, we're forgiving. And when we're in complete forgiveness without judgment, the seeming situation disappears. Thanks.
Thank you, Gloria. Thank you. And then Regis wrote something wonderfully insightful in the chat room. The world is not happening to me, the world is happening through me. I am not a victim of the world I see. Wonderful. Thank you, Regis. Myrna.
Yes, I want to apologize for jumping out for a few minutes. My roof it was leaking and it was being repaired, so I had to kind of sign off to pay the guys to finish the repair job. So anyway, I didn't get all of what you said, and I always wanted to, I really kind of pick it up. But even the little that I did get, I really, you know, feel the truth of it all. And I know you were talking about your sister, the relationship you have with your sister, Susan. And, and this has been going on for some time. And I know that you've been really very, it kind of pulled you away from your peace, really, a lot of the time because of her anger. And that's something you kind of come to terms with. And I just see that you're just being a wonderful sister because you are really trying very, very hard to resurrect the relationship and that you're doing whatever you can. And I see that. I really see how you are taking the basics of A Course in Miracles very much to heart and using those principles in the trying to save the relationship between you and your sister. And I think, all our experiences, I mean, I've had uh, estrangements from my own daughter. And I think what happens is through those experiences we learn so much because I think every experience that seems adverse is really an experience that's blessing, I think, because if it brings you closer to the purpose of the reality that now you really want to embody, and just like I did with my daughter. In other words, coming closer to the realization that my daughter and I have, I think our relationship is better now than it's ever been. And he really went through a lot of the, separation by whatever it is we both needed to go through. But I can tell you that it really seemed to come full circle. I was just on the phone with her yesterday, and I think that she's doing yoga, and she puts those photos on Facebook, and I commented on it and talked about how far really she's come, and I've come so far as well. So it's going to be healed. It just takes I think just letting go is also important. Letting go of the fear of you don't want to lose your sister, but at the same time, you can never lose that. You can never lose that relationship. And she needs to just come full circle as well. And you will meet in the middle. So I really just have that faith. And everything is faith. If we have faith and we don't question it, we just have that feeling that we can never be hurt. We just need to rely on our the lovingness of the Creator. To me, it's shown through Jesus, because I feel that connection. So when I ask, I always look to Him, and sometimes I even apologize because I forgot to ask. I went through all the rigmarole and all the nonsense, and so and I listen for the answer, and sometimes you say, you should have asked. Anyway, so
That's what today's lesson is about, Myrna. That's very insightful for you to
yeah,
say. Today's lesson, I need but call and you will answer me. So it's all about remembering each day to ask for his guidance so he can direct us, so he can guide us. And when we are following the guidance of Christ, we will feel peaceful, we will feel strong. I mean, I know when I'm truly allowing myself to be guided by Christ, it's just there's a difference in my demeanor, there's a difference in my mind, like it's such an empowering place to reside in. So yeah, it correlates directly to lesson 327, and Glorian has her hand up.
Yeah, just quickly, I want to jump on what Myrna was saying there. And I think all of us have these experiences to some extent with somebody in the dream because it's the ego presenting itself and the fundamental idea that we could be alone. And that to me is one of the things that we heal and recognition and an acceptance of what we truly are. We recognize that we could never, ever be alone because of what we are, that I am presence, that I am within us. But on the level of the world, I think, I'll speak for myself, acceptance of a situation and instead, in the recognition that I cannot fix or change it. Because there are times when there are certain people that face it, you can give blood and they're not, it doesn't matter because they're how they are, and that's the way it is. So it was my responsibility to accept that, and instead of resisting it, hoping for something else, wanting something else, resistance being of the ego, acceptance being of spirit, and like Myrna was saying, which we always have to come back to, ask, ask, ask. Holy Spirit, what do I do? Where do I go? What do I say and to whom? What is the loving thing to do here? Is it loving for me to continue to chase someone who is not receptive to healing? Or do I accept that this is what I seemingly see and recognize that my salvation is not found upon, doesn't depend upon it? And I really feel that healing may come not necessarily in the way that we think it should, just as when we giving and receiving are one in truth. So when we put it out there with no investment, it may not come back to you from the person to whom you've given it, but it will come back to you. So I think for me the idea is just resting and continuing to move my consciousness into mindful awareness of presence, always responding with asking spirit, what's the loving thing to do here, following that guidance and letting it be and allowing it to take whatever course it does, because I'm not invested in the outcome. I'm not attached to the outcome because I don't know what anything is for. So I allow spirit to reinterpret it and let all things be as they are instead of placing my self-imposed limiting judgment upon it. Thanks.
I like what you said, Gloria, about that we chase the relationship down sometimes. And I've learned through the experience that myself chasing the relationship with my daughter. I'm chasing it. And I think there was 1 year that we just had communication. But when it came back the way it was supposed to. we needed that time. We both needed it at that time, and we certainly did to heal and to feel a little love. And I know, you have to recognize too that I know that she always. I don't believe that she stopped loving me. I mean, I never believe that, and I'll never come to that, feeling that I'm unloved by her. I mean, so that's something for me to hold on to. Uh, and it just really healed. It just healed by allowing God to heal. I think we get in the way sometimes if we try to do it ourselves. We want to do it ourselves. We want to handle it ourselves. And stepping away is the best thing we can do because we're getting out of the way of God's healing and whatever needs to be done. And again, to have faith in that. And so I came a long way realizing that it doesn't get face it down anymore. I always felt love for her. I really, in fact, I knew in my heart that I felt love for her. I asked, when I questioned, how do I know that I really love her? And I think the answer came to me is that I would rather die than see her again. That was the answer that just came to me. And that was, I mean, that's just how I kind of uh, reconciled my feelings, recognizing too that I just needed to let it heal. And yeah, so that's really all I wanted to add to.
Yeah, I think you both said very wise, insightful things. Thank you for your shares. I guess going back a little bit, I took some notes on what Glorian shared. She said, "My salvation does not come from this relationship." And it's very important to remember that that's always been a challenge for me in this lifetime to realize that the only thing that I need is a connection to my creator. My peace, love, joy, and happiness cannot come from another person. It cannot come from anything that I attain in this world. The only way I can feel true peace and true joy is to recognize that I am completely dependent upon God and He is always there for me. All I need is to open my heart to receive his love. And he's always waiting for me to come back to him. And whenever I can open my heart to receive his love, I will feel the peace, love, joy, and happiness of my true nature. I can never be abandoned. I seemingly can be abandoned by people of this world, but I can never be abandoned by the only thing that is important to me, which is God. Um, and I was listening to Course in Miracles on Audible today again. And every time I just really absorb what it's teaching me, I feel so empowered. And I mean, it's just amazing what A Course in Miracles is teaching us. Jesus said, "There is nothing about me that you cannot attain. The difference between me, Jesus, and you is that I do not have anything that does not come from God." We all still have blocks that we're in the process of releasing. But the only thing that Jesus has is just pure love. And that is what he is teaching us to do. So if I can really embody the truth of who I am, I cannot be hurt. I cannot be abandoned. I don't need my sister. I love my sister, but I don't need her. Because the thing is too, it's if I really need her, then I can't love her because the two are polar opposite. Needing is based on fear and loving giving is based on love. So need has nothing to do with love. Need is fear-based. So when I think I need my sister, I'm not able to love my sister. Glorian?
I absolutely love that, Susan. That's just absolutely it in a nutshell. Anything that we think that we need is really desire from the ego. And all desire is the miracle impulse, which is really wanting the oneness that we receive from the acceptance of what we are, the oneness of God, of what we are in truth. And when you were speaking and you were talking about the special relationship, and the special relationship can manifest itself in many ways. It doesn't have to be a person, it could be many things. But if we recognize all the special relationships, the idols, which is really like that golden calf that keeps us from our salvation. So Jesus tells us that the special relationship, all special relationships are to be made holy. And I remember once being in contemplation about that and say, how do I master the special relation? How do I get beyond this idea of specialness? And it came very clearly to me, make them all the same. And he says it in the course that we make this, all special relationships must be made the same. So once we recognize that the special relationship is there to be made holy, everything that we see is to be looked upon with the eyes of Christ in that recognition of the acceptance of my holiness. And once I accept my own holiness, then that's all that I see. So again, we're coming back to everything out there showing us what we think and calling to us to accept what we truly are. Because in our perfect holiness, our perfect oneness, God's will for me is perfect happiness. We could only be happiness. And as you say, and I always say too, and joyous if we are in that state of being. We can't be, you know, have joy from the ego. The ego is not joy. The ego is fear. The ego is death. The ego is separation. So it must be surrendered in favor of the holiness that I am. And that will give us our perfect happiness. And it's funny that we're talking here today about love. All morning, the whole theme was love. And he tells us somewhere, I don't know where in the course, but the ministers of God can never fail because the love and the strength and peace that shine from them to all their brothers come from him. So again, he's telling us there that once we accept him, the Christ within, as what we are, there is no failure. There's no failure in love because God is expressing as. Only the ego's interpretation is limiting the love of God. And he says in text, this I have a verse, text 28, 3, the end of dreaming is the end of fear, and love never was in the world of dreams. So all of this specialness that we think is love, really, we come to that place of recognition that we need to surrender these ideas of specialness, make all relationships the same, see them as one, accept what we are, giving and receiving a one in truth, and then we recognize that the love of the world is not the love that we seek. And it's a lot because it keeps manifesting itself in different ways and to tempt us to draw us into temptation. But as Jesus says, forgive us our illusions and help us to accept a true relationship with you. To me, that prayer can be summed up the whole course in that one sentence. Because the illusions come in many forms. Forgive us our illusions. They're our own self-concepts. They're our own projections of guilt out there, and help us to accept our true relationship with you. If we accept what we are in truth, the rest of this disappears. Thanks.
Thank you, Gloria. Yeah, it says it all, really. If we could just, embody just a small segment of what you said, uh, we would be healed. I mean, it's just constant reinforcement. We need to know that we're never abandoned, never ever abandoned, and to hold on to that reality, that truth. It is what we need, I think, more than anything, to believe, to feel, to know, and to have the faith. That's so. We just put something in the chat. I want you to read it. World. Just, Yes, the world is not happening to me. The world is happening through me. I'm not a victim of the world I see. So, that reminds me of when Jesus in the Course in Miracles says, we don't, we should live in the world, but not live of the world. Be in the world, not of the world. And there's a big difference. We're living in the world because we are that's what we're supposed to do. This is what we do with a choice. But we do have a choice, and what's wrong with that? Because we live in the world and abandon, the part of us that is of the world, and it's really all there is. That living in the world is to know that to accept, to realize that we are a part of something wonderful, something tremendous. And the more we really just, get rid of, confiscate the outer world and just let the world become, um, you know, somehow recognize that the world is happening through me and let it happen through us and just not be fearful of the millions of different things that seem to really infringe upon that. And again, there we have to come to the recognition that we have something tremendous to rely on, and that's the God, the Holy Spirit, Jesus. We're just so protected, and we don't even have to, believe it blindly. All we do is experience it, and no matter how many wonderful experiences and how many wonderful miracles we see, we don't seem to really live completely within that understanding. We do get pulled away because that's what we do. We choose to really change the peace that we're feeling and take hold of fear. When we think we have no choice, we do have a choice. We don't have to become the victim to that. What we do is just experience the peace that we're given to feel under any circumstances, anything at all. Even when I tell you I was estranged from my daughter, I still felt peaceful. I didn't feel fear or a sense of loss. I just always felt peaceful, even through this whole thing, this whole year-long estrangement that we had. In any event, I want to just tell you, you know what, Susan? You know what I saw yesterday? Again, believe it or not, The Wizard of Oz. Netflix is showing it again. And I wasn't at
What
it.
I didn't hear you, Myrna. The speech
The
was a little
Wizard of,
garbled. Oh,
yeah,
The Wizard of Oz?
yes, I saw it again because Netflix was showing it again, and I wasn't even going to tune into it. And I said, oh, okay, let me, there's nothing else to watch. So glad I did because you know what I enjoyed today as I did the first time I saw this. I mean, you always, the beauty of that movie is brilliant. Just the scenery and the friendship between, Dorothy, the Wizard of Oz, Dorothy, the Tin Man, and the Lion, and the Straw Man, and you kind of recognize that each character has this own, fear. They have their fear, and I think that the relationship between them really is what brought them to the understanding of what's really real. And it just it never dies. That movie is always so precious, and I enjoyed it just. And I know we've discussed it, right? I mean, what you saw in that movie has to do with what we speak about.
Oh, yes. We always discuss that movie, Myrna. Yes, we do. You said a lot of very wise, insightful things, and I want to comment. The first thing you pointed out so astutely was that even when you were not in touch with your daughter, you still were at peace. And that is so crucial because special relationships, are all about, I guess, to go back to what I was saying before, need. Our sense of self is based on our relationship with that other person, but holy relationships are not about that. So you were at peace when you weren't in touch with your daughter, and then when she came back into your life, I know she's in your life now, and it's beautiful, but just not to base our joy on our relationships of the world is so important for us to remember. And it really brought up in my mind the initial phases of my relationship with my husband, because I guess going back 20 years when we first met, he used to break up with me a lot. That was kind of the beginning of our relationship. He kept breaking up with me, and I kept chasing after him, and I kept it going. He would break up, I would kind of beg him to return, so he would, and then he'd break up with me again. And it finally got to this point after about 9 months of the breakups, I had enough. So I went into a meditation and I realized that I did not need him in order to be happy. I just didn't need him. So I completely let go, and I found that peace of God within my own mind, and it wasn't based on my relationship with my then boyfriend, now husband. And it was only by letting go of the need to be with him that I believe allowed the relationship to manifest itself, because then he came back to me again. And from that point, he never left, and now we're married and we're doing well. But it's so important to remember that our joy does not come from our relationship with another person, because if we think we need anyone for our happiness, it's not a holy relationship, it's a special relationship. It's to use psychological terms, it's not an interdependent relationship, it's a codependent relationship. And codependent relationships do not work. They're not of God. And I've spent so much of my life being codependent on different people. And I really think in a way that's something that I'm working through again with my sister, because that was a dysfunctional dynamic and ego dynamic that I learned as a child. So that's something that really I'm in the process of releasing. That's darkness in my unconscious mind that's coming to the surface for healing purposes. So I'm kind of getting some clarity on it now that I'm speaking about it. So thank you for letting me share, and thank you for bringing it to my mind. And then you brought up the Wizard of Oz that I love, love, love. I mean, I think Myrna, you and I, going way back to our first Course in Miracles group in the Upper West Side of Manhattan with Jeff Murnov, we used to listen to that movie, and our Course in Miracles teacher, Jeff, at the time would explain the Wizard of Oz based on A Course in Miracles, and there's so many wonderful lessons to be learned from that movie. I think just this past Sunday on Maureen Muldoon's platform, her guest was talking about the Wizard of Oz because it's extremely spiritual. I mean, the Tin Man, the lion, they all think that they're lacking something, and they think they're going to get what they're lacking from the Wizard of Oz. So the Wizard of Oz is going to give the Tin Man a heart. The Wizard of Oz is going to give the Scarecrow some guts, some courage. The Wizard of Oz is going to give them all something they're lacking. But the truth is, he didn't have that magic power all they needed to do is just embody those traits within themselves. And I mean, again, that's like such a brilliant analogy for what we all have access to in this lifetime. We think we're missing something. We think we need something, from the world, but we don't. Course in Miracles is very clear that we all have everything that we need within us. So it's important for us to remember that. It's important for us to recognize that. It's important for us to embody that. I mean, we're all strong. We all have courage, and that courage comes from our connection to God. We are intelligent, and that intelligence, that wisdom. I even think wisdom is so much more important than intelligence. That wisdom comes from God. So all these character traits that we think we need from the world, what we really need to do is we need to just recognize that we have everything that we need within us. So I love that movie. And then Glorian wrote a few amazing chats here. We all do it when we are an ego, identify with specialness, about what I was saying about the special relationship. Everyone in this room hears the voice for God. Why do we still do it? It takes the willingness. The miracle waits on our welcome. We may want, but we do not need anything. We already are everything we think we need. I know that almost reminds me of that song by what is it, the Rolling Stones. You can't always get what you want, but if you try, sometimes you just might find you'll get what you need. The ego wants. God doesn't give to us what we want because we don't always know what's right for us, but we always get what we need. And that's what allows us to grow closer to God and to learn the lessons that we're learning here in this earthly classroom. Thoughts, anyone?
You mentioned the Wizard of Oz that Jeff Myrna used to play for us, and we'd watch it and he would explain it. But there's also another movie that he would show to us every Christmas. And Christmas is coming up, and it's a good idea to watch that movie. That is a tremendous message, and he would bring us through the movie and show us the Course in Miracles points, within that movie. It's with James Stewart, a man that's, anyway, it's around Christmas time, and he's really suffering a lot, and he wants to do away with himself. And an angel comes into his life and shows him all the things. He thought he was nothing. He thought he wasn't worth anything. He thought he was worthless, and yet he was shown all the things that would have occurred if he were not alive. His brother would have drowned. All various different things that would have been because of him. Things were better. I said all the circumstances that were better because he was alive. And I think that's true of all of us. If we were, we think about it, all the things that the ego touches on all the things we didn't do and all the things that we should do and all of that. But when we think about it, certain points in our life that we did do good. And if we weren't there, that it would not have turned out well. And the world does depend on each and every one of us because we all give it a certain clarity. We all bring things to the world that the world would not have experienced without our presence. So, and that too makes me see that. If we really think about it, we're worthy. Anyway, Glorian has a hand up.
Yeah, I love that. And that's it. I am worthy. It goes back to that, our worthiness is established by God. And I think the important thing too that was said here today is we can recognize that our experience is based upon our choice. And, we are here to remember, recognize, and acknowledge. But I do like the word recognize, that we recognize what's always true and what's changeless. And, once we are in to our right mind, we recognize that only equals are at peace, because if there's any form of evaluation, we're in the wrong mind. And like your book says, and I'm big on joy also, when we remember to choose to align with our right mind, then we're in joy. And that's a choice that we constantly make all the time. And in that is where we rest. And we can rest in God in that place of remembering what we truly are. But it's always there. It's just waiting on our welcome. And all we have to do is choose it. And like I said, why don't we do it? I mean, all of us spend a lot of time doing this, and we certainly do hear the voice of God. But what makes we wander into temptation? And it's really just at this point, I think, a lack of willingness to accept what we are and maintain it. But we are living in the world. And even Joe Goldsmith says that if you achieve Christ consciousness 80 to 90% of the time, the other 10 to 20% we're living in the world. So there's still unresolved guilt that we have projected out there based upon fear that we still maintain to show us what we think. So that's why we are still here. And if we look at every
Every
single
single
instant
instant.
as the opportunity to bless instead of condemn, we can remember what we are. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I mean, all the times when we can connect to Christ consciousness, it's the most beautiful state of mind to reside in. And I can remember numerous times when my mind is at peace. And that is what A Course in Miracles is teaching us to access. I had the most beautiful meditation this morning, so I know I'm capable of doing it whenever I choose to. My meditations seem to get better and better. And I know when I'm in the midst of meditation and I'm just like, still, be still and know that I am God, and I have forgiven my brothers. I mean, when you're really in that place, you no longer need to forgive anyone because you're not condemning or judging anyone. You're just in a place of peace, love, joy, and happiness. You're in a place of perfect serenity. You're in a place of eternal bliss. And I know when I tap into that consciousness, I call it Christ consciousness, I just don't want to leave. I want to stay there, but then I go into the world, and I have a challenging time coming from a place of love all the time. But each time I'm triggered, as you just so wisely said, Gloria, and there are opportunities for me to bless. There are opportunities for me to bless whatever has triggered me. And when I can bless whatever is not love, when I can bless whatever is based on fear, it's like I work through it and I release the darkness. So that the world is a classroom. It's always giving us opportunities to learn. It's always giving us opportunities to grow. And by studying A Course in Miracles daily, it's just such a beautiful guidance system to remember the truth of who I am, to remember how much love is available to me. Again, as you just said, whenever I choose to tap into it, to remember it. So it's 2 o'clock. Any thoughts before I return the microphone?
Just quick, I was going to say, Susan, that's the goal. Through that practice of meditation, the stilling of the mind, we move into that changeless dwelling place. And the more we practice it, the more we maintain it. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Gloria. And thank you, Myrna, my beautiful soul sister. Thank you. Thank you. And as A Course in Miracles says, nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. And what that means is the only thing that's real is the love. Thank God for that. And I will now return the microphone to Lynn.
Thank you guys all so much. What a wonderful conversation. I just love it. I'm going to go ahead and stop the YouTube.